Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
Good evening. It's Monday, November 23rd. Thank you for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Skyrocketing numbers, long lines, the impact of COVID-19 being felt all across the county. This as the Thanksgiving holiday draws near. We hit another single-day case record on Saturday. That was 1,478 cases reported. And today, the county announced 1,167 new cases. As KPBS reporter Tanya Thorne tells us, for many still intending to visit loved ones, their travel plans now include getting a COVID test.
Despite the current travel advisory, people are still packing their bags and flying out of the San Diego airport.
I am flying home to Denver for the holidays, just to go be with my family for Thanksgiving.
But for many, booking a plane ticket includes getting a COVID-19 test.
It's both ways. When I get to Denver, I'll have to take one so I can be with my family, and then when I get back to state to get tested again for being able to go back to work. Yeah.
The need for peace of mind of traveling is creating long wait lines at testing centers. A maze of people created long lines at the former USD Electronics Recycling Center, where people were waiting to get tested.
I'm flying to New York City, so I have to get tested, and I have to make sure that I'm really safe about everything because it's a really serious thing.
While it is recommended that people stay home this holiday season to avoid the spread of COVID-19, San Diego airport officials released some travel tips.
Recommend social distancing.
Travelers should practice safety measures such as washing hands often, avoid touching their face, keep 6 feet social distancing, and conduct a temperature check before arriving to the airport.
Keep 6 feet of distance from others.
Tanya Thorne, KPBS News.
And coming up, a look at the uptick in travel across the country and why getting a negative coronavirus test may provide a false sense of security. A judge has denied a request by a group of local businesses to be allowed to continue indoor operations despite record numbers of coronavirus cases. KPBS reporter Max Rivlin-Nadler now with the judge's reasoning behind the ruling.
The lawsuit came from 4 businesses, including restaurants and gyms, which have to end indoor service under the state's purple tier guidelines. On Monday afternoon, San Diego Superior Court Judge Kenneth J. Medell ruled the state's order has, quote, general support in science and reason, and that the dangers of rolling these measures back outweighs the economic harm caused by them. In court last Friday, Bruno Katz, an attorney representing the businesses, says his clients were being unfairly singled out, while some retail businesses are allowed to continue to operate indoors.
The restaurants are not asking for anything other than being treated in a similar fashion as to other industries. They are not the one driving the metric, but for some reason, the state has believed that restaurants and gyms are somehow more problematic than other industries.
Shortly after the ruling, County Board of Supervisors Nathan Fletcher and Greg Cox proposed a $20 million relief program for businesses impacted by the move to the purple tier. The board is set to consider this proposal on Wednesday. Meanwhile, Judge Medell set a hearing for next week to listen to further arguments over whether the county's health orders should be rolled back. Max Rivlin-Nadler, KPBS News.
Los Angeles County is taking the state restrictions a step further, shutting down outdoor dining. The order takes effect Wednesday at 10 p.m. and includes dining at breweries, wineries, and bars. It will last for at least 3 weeks. Drive-through takeout and delivery services will be allowed, but many restaurant owners are frustrated, saying they've already invested thousands to move outside only to have to close again.
So it's just been devastating. Now that we're going to close the outside, we're going to have to tell 11 of our employees, go home. And how are they going to pay their bills?
And the LA County Department of Public Health reports that the 5-day average of new infections has passed 4,000 daily cases. If that number hits 4,500, a targeted stay-at-home order will be issued for 3 weeks. Another coronavirus vaccine is showing promising results. AstraZeneca says its experimental vaccine is 70% effective on average. It showed 90% efficacy in one dosing regimen. AstraZeneca said its vaccine is, quote, highly effective in preventing COVID-19 and that there were no hospitalizations or severe cases of the disease reported in participants. Nearly 3 weeks after Election Day, the formal transition process can now begin. And President-elect Joe Biden is naming more members of his team. Karen Kaifa has the details from Washington.
A letter from the General Services Administrator Emily Murphy to President-elect Joe Biden says that the Trump administration is finally ready to begin the formal transition process, giving the Biden team access to key funding and resources. President Trump, in a tweet, said he was recommending that Emily and her team do what needs to be done with regard to initial protocols and have told my team to do the same. But he also said he'd keep up his election fight. Meanwhile, Joe Biden made a number of announcements in regards to his foreign policy and national security teams, and some are poised to make history. For Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas, who would be the first Latino and first immigrant to serve in that role. Avril Haines, who would be the first woman to serve as Director of National Intelligence. The Biden transition team on Monday confirmed Antony Blinken as Secretary of State, longtime diplomat Linda Thomas Greenfield is Biden's pick to be U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations. Jake Sullivan, his national security advisor. And former Secretary of State John Kerry tapped for a special National Security Council role dedicated to climate change. An official announcement will come Tuesday afternoon. And a source says that Biden has selected Janet Yellen as his Treasury Secretary. She would be the first woman to serve in that role. Yellen, former chair of the Federal Reserve, would be tasked with leading Biden's response to the economic devastation of the coronavirus pandemic. And with foreign policy on his mind, the Biden transition team said that the president-elect took multiple calls on Monday from foreign leaders, including King Abdullah II of Jordan, European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen, and European Council President Charles Michel. The common thread in all of those conversations, the global response to the COVID-19 pandemic. In Washington, I'm Karen Kaifa.
Governor Gov Newsom and his family are quarantining for 14 days. The decision comes after 3 of Newsom's children were exposed to a CHP officer who tested positive for coronavirus. That officer provides security for Newsom's family. Newsom said he and his wife had no direct contact with the officer. The entire family, though, has tested negative. The governor held today's news conference from his home, where he admitted he made a mistake in dining out for a friend's birthday.
Yeah, no, I made a mistake. I apologized. We had dinner, 4 o'clock dinner in an orange-tiered county. We're not telling people they can't eat, but indeed, I made a mistake being with a few extra people beyond the guidelines that I've been promoting, which is outside the households. That was a mistake, and I let my guard down, and I apologize for it.
California's Health and Human Services Secretary will be updating state case rates tomorrow. He says tomorrow some counties may be moving to a more restrictive tier. Father Joe's Villages will serve over 1,000 Thanksgiving meals Wednesday to people experiencing homelessness in San Diego. KPBS reporter Jacob Ayer says the event will also distribute hygiene kits and include a virtual 5K fundraiser.
This Thanksgiving will look different at Father Joe's Villages. Rather than enjoy a sit-down meal, those who come to the Wednesday Thanksgiving program will receive a to-go box of food and a backpack filled with hygiene and PPE essentials.
We won't have congregate dining because we want to keep people safe, but we will have a turkey and all the trimmings. We're going to try to make it as festive as possible. We will also include a backpack. Everyone who comes will walk away with a backpack. The backpack will have hygiene kits. We'll have PPEs like masks and sanitizing. We'll also have a letter of encouragement.
Deacon Jim Vargas is the president and CEO of Father Joe's Villages and says This year's event holds additional significance as the COVID-19 pandemic has increased food insecurity in San Diego.
Behind me, I have what's called the Franklin Antonio Public Lunch Line, and this is something that has been open to the community, those who are not necessarily residents with us and on the streets, and so it's been their sometimes main meal of the day, so they come in for a lunch. Because of the increased food insecurity, we've extended this to breakfast and dinner as well. So we've been serving 3 meals a day here, as well as the 3 meals that we always serve for those who are residing with us.
The annual Father Joe's 5K Run fundraiser will still take place on Thanksgiving Day, but this year participants will run on their own rather than in a large group in Balboa Park.
The proceeds go to fund the meals that we serve here throughout the year. And basically, we typically gather about $400,000, and I'm concerned about that because our registrations are down this year.
Deacon Vargas says that Father Joe's Villages will continue to provide 3 daily meals to those in need and also provide a Christmas meal next month. Jacob Ayer, KPBS News.
Millions of Americans are traveling this Thanksgiving week despite pleas from the CDC and other health officials to stay home amidst the worsening pandemic. As Adrian Broaddus tells us, a negative coronavirus test doesn't necessarily mean it's safe to visit family.
It's the rush home for Thanksgiving during the coronavirus pandemic, with travelers packing airports over the weekend, ignoring warnings from the CDC urging Americans to stay home this year. According to the TSA, over 2 million passengers went through checkpoints at U.S. airports Friday and Saturday. That's the most since the early days of the pandemic, which Dr. Anthony Fauci says is concerning.
You're in a crowded airport, you're lining up, not everybody's wearing masks. That puts yourself at risk. One of the things we're really concerned about is that as we get into this Thanksgiving season, you're not going to see an increase until weeks later. Things lag.
Some people choosing to wait in lines hours to get tested before the holiday. But health experts warn a negative result does not mean that it's safe to see friends and family.
A single negative test isn't enough, and you have to really be careful. That's why this holiday season we've decided as a family not to do anything and just stay in our household, which I think is really, unfortunately, the only safe thing to do over this Thanksgiving.
Coronavirus-related deaths have increased in at least 41 states in the past week, and many hospitals are already overwhelmed by patients, with doctors saying it will only get worse.
We're already running out of nurses and respiratory therapists. We are terrified, and we really can't plead strongly enough with Americans to spend Thanksgiving at home.
This, as the head of the White House's vaccine effort says, one could be available in just a few weeks. Pfizer submitting an application to the FDA Friday for emergency use authorization of its COVID-19 vaccine.
Our plan is to be able to ship vaccines to the immunization sites within 24 hours from the approval. So I would expect maybe on day 2 after approval, on the 11th or on the 12th of December.
But even with the prospect of a vaccine starting to roll out in a few weeks, health experts say it's necessary to take the coronavirus seriously.
There's light at the end of the tunnel right now. Try not to be the person who gets infected in the last 2 or 3 months of the acute phase of this pandemic. We need to just get through a very difficult period right now.
And that was Adrian Broaddus reporting. Here in California, 18 to 49-year-olds make up nearly 60% of new infections. There's also been a 55% increase in ICU admissions in the past 2 weeks. And the pandemic won't be the only reason for empty seats around the Thanksgiving table this month. With President Donald Trump still refusing to concede the election, many families remain fractured. KPBS's Amita Sharma reports on how some San Diegans are coping as Trump's tenure draws to a close.
All it took was talk of the recent rise in COVID-19 cases for Jonathan Hansen and his brother-in-law to get into a dust-up. The brother-in-law defended President Trump's pandemic response. Hansen disagreed.
He started raising his voice. I raised my voice. I said a curse word.
All in front of their kids. Hansen says he reached for his shoes to leave when his brother-in-law...
He grabbed the shoes, checked them out the door, and then he just kind of pushed, like, open-handed punch out, just punch me out.
Hansen says his sister then appeared and hit him too. He called police.
I was in shock. And these are it's my sister who I love dearly. It's my brother-in-law who I also love dearly.
Family fights continue to erupt nationwide as siblings, parents and children, and couples divide over Trump. Rifts have developed over the president's comments about immigrants, women, and minorities, the sexual assault allegations against him, his administration's caging of migrant children, his handling of the pandemic, and now his false voter fraud claims in the race he lost to President-elect Joe Biden this month.
I regularly hear people sharing about the pain they have, that they can't talk with their brother anymore.
David Peters is a San Diego marriage and family therapist.
Their parents won't talk with them anymore, that the family just can't relax together. People are afraid, people are hurting, people feel shamed, and bitterness is rising.
Peters says science explains how emotions get so charged.
Politics in the mind sits in the same space as religion. It's that deep because it has to do with which tribe I'm with.
Hansen, a real estate contractor, says he's puzzled that his siblings and parents, all Mormon, have supported a president whose conduct contradicts their religion.
It's not what we were taught growing up, to love one another, to turn the other cheek, to be more compassionate and empathetic, to listen.
He also wonders why his mom, a nurse, has been reluctant to wear a mask.
He'll go off on, oh, that's an overreach of the government.
Hansen says the cognitive dissonance is unbearable.
Talk. We can't even hang out together. I mean, it's too incendiary.
Retired teacher and Trump supporter Diane Pearson says political arguments with her youngest child, Benjamin Goodwin, a senior at UC Davis, have cut deep.
I was even moved to tears several times, just kind of afterward, just going away and crying on my own, because I was so sad that after several years of college, that he seems to have so far become pretty close-minded.
Pearson says she likes Trump because he opposes abortion rights. She also favors his immigration policy.
I think that the wall is a good idea.
As for Trump's disparaging tweets, she gets the criticism.
But at the same time, he's got a certain decisiveness and power in making decisions that I agree with.
But Goodwin doesn't get what he says is his mother's unconditional backing of Trump.
And this isn't just my mom. I feel like this is most Trump supporters. No matter what, they will find a way to defend him.
Goodwin is half white and half black. His mother is white. He believes Trump is a racist. He says race forms the crux of the gap with his mom.
I see things kind of from a different perspective, seeing from both like a black and white perspective. And I feel like my mom can only really see things from a white person's point of view.
Family therapist Peters says he counsels his clients to apologize for heated exchanges, refrain from talking politics, and not to give up.
The worst thing you can do is cut off relationships with family members.
Jonathan Hansen and his girlfriend, Crystal Coleman, hope to mend fences with his siblings and parents. But she says they wrestle with telling them that everyone makes mistakes and that Trump supporters were misled by his lies.
Then the other part of me goes, how could you not realize what he was doing? How could you not see it? How could you not hear it? And your silence was your consent, if nothing else. And how do we get past that?
What Hansen knows for sure is,
I miss sitting with my mom and being with my mom, who loves me, who raised me, took care of me, having tea with her, having a nice meal with her, laughing, talking about her grandkids.
Amita Sharma, KPBS News.
Clouds will hang tough along the coast this week, and we'll see cooler temperatures on the way. Dry weather, expect that through the week. And it does look like the end of the week will be rather windy, as we do see a Santa Ana pattern shaping up. Taking a look at tonight, clouds around the coastal areas, mid-40s in Oceanside, into the low 50s in San Diego as we head to the interior valleys. Ramona is at 38, and El Cajon's 49. Borrego Springs 48, and Mount Laguna is at 31. Now for Tuesday, well, the flow is going to turn a little bit offshore, but right along the coast, that marine layer is going to hang tough. So clouds, some sun in the 60s from Oceanside to San Diego. El Cajon at 74 and Ramon at 67. Sunshine, Borrego Springs, Mount Laguna, and Campo. Looking ahead, Wednesday, well, see the marine layer hanging tough. And then on Thursday night and Friday, we start to see the Santa Ana taking up a residence here. High pressure builds to north, upper trough moves through. So it gets quite windy here, especially on Friday. Looking at the extended forecast, well, we'll see low clouds and fog giving way to some sun. It'll be cool. Friday, breezy, plenty of sunshine. And as we take you to the inland areas, winds starting to kick in here Thursday night into Friday. And as we get you into the weekend, temperatures will be a little bit milder. Looking into the mountains, some sunshine will be with us. Strong winds on Friday, winds subsiding on Saturday. And as we take you through the deserts, we'll be looking at temperatures here in the mid-70s, dropping off just a little bit. Those look like some pleasant weather ahead for Turkey Day. And for KPBS News, I'm meteorologist Mark Mancuso.
San Diego's cannabis industry is hoping to form a city-sanctioned business improvement district. KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen says it would be the first of its kind in California.
The district would be similar to the city's tourism marketing district, which collects a portion of hotel revenues to promote San Diego as a tourist destination. The Cannabis Business Improvement District, or CBID, would use funds collected from legal retail outlets to try and stamp out the black market, which is unregulated and untaxed. Rocky Goyal is owner of the Apothecare dispensary.
That's revenue that's not coming through legal channels. That's revenue that's not being taxed. So everybody's missing out on that, right? And then add the public health risk to it and public safety risk. That's a big deal. I think that issue alone, if we were able to put a dent in that, this program would be hugely successful.
A city council committee gave unanimous approval to the proposal on Friday. It still needs support from the full city council, mayor, and a majority of cannabis retail outlets. Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
Southern California's most famous white supremacist died earlier this month. KPBS reporter Steve Walsh talks to one of his former disciples about Tom Metzger's legacy of hate.
Tom Metzger was the face of white supremacy in Southern California beginning in the late 1970s, first with the Ku Klux Klan and then as a leader of his Fallbrook-based White Aryan Resistance. Chuck Leek met him when Leek was a young skinhead in the 1980s in San Diego.
He never repented. He never changed his stance one bit. And he was a force for just evil in the world.
Leek associated with Metzger at his height when Metzger went on shows like Oprah. One member of Metzger's group famously broke Geraldo Rivera's nose when he threw a chair at the daytime talk show host. Leek broke out of the movement in the year 2000.
And then it took me another 10 years to really dispel the ideology, change my heart, and start actively working against white supremacy.
Leek now works with Life After Hate, which seeks to guide people out of the white supremacist movement. For Metzger, things came crashing down in 1990 when the Southern Poverty Law Center sued him in the death of an Ethiopian grad student murdered in Portland by white supremacists. He was forced to pay a multi-million-dollar judgment.
Basically bankrupt him. He had to give up his house in Fallbrook that he owned, and he had to make payments to them, as far as I know, to his dying day. And it really basically dismantled his operation.
Metzger eventually moved back to Indiana, then back to Southern California near the end of his life. In recent years, Metzger would confront Leek on Twitter.
So I don't think he was happy at the end of his days. Judging by the things I saw from him on Twitter, he was kind of a miserable old man.
With the FBI citing white supremacy as the #1 domestic terror threat in 2020, Leek says Metzger influenced the recent wave of violent hate groups like Atomwaffen Division and the Base. even though he was mostly out of the spotlight.
He's absolutely got a legacy. He was actively telling us, you know, if you don't have felonies, don't get felonies, grow your hair out, stop getting tattoos, get into, you know, become lawyers, get in the military and get rank, you know, become police and get rank. He was telling us to do these things, and they're being done now.
Metzger died November 4th in Hemet, California, leaving a chilling legacy, Leak says. Steve Walsh, KPBS News.
I'm Judy Woodruff. Tonight on the NewsHour, the transition. President-elect Joe Biden announces his picks for top jobs in his administration. Coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
Here's a look at what we're working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom. On Morning Edition, what went wrong in the South Bay with COVID-19 and how are people dealing with it? And then on Midday Edition, the price of homes in San Diego County stalled last month for the first time since the pandemic began. Is this a trend, or will news of a vaccine start prices rising again? You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Have a great evening.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley. And by the following: and by viewers like you. Thank you.